Welcome to another special session of our hackathon. Today we have Ricky. Ricky was the community manager at CoinDC, also contributor at Shadium. Also is a public speaker and do a lot of stuff. Hey Ricky, welcome to our special session. How are you doing?
Hey man, thanks for joining, letting me in the show, and I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Excellent.
All
So
right.
here is our agenda, guys. Ricky is going to do a workshop on 20 minutes about CBTC, coin, stable coins, etc. Later, I will be asking Ricky about some questions regarding community building, community management, and both. So, Ricky, introduce us about yourself a little bit and walk through us into the workshop.
Sure. So I've been in this space for like 4 to 5 years in the crypto Web3 space. Before that, I've been, building communities online. So most of my work revolves around the communities that I've built. Initially, it was, in a game called Second Life. Then I switched to there was a game of Minecraft. I had a bunch of communities there. And then I moved into the YouTube and the tech space where there was an era where everybody was creating tech channels, if you remember that. So these are the things that I've been doing for the past few years. Then has officially entering the Web3 space. That started back in like last year when I joined WazirX NFT. So on WazirX NFT, I was the community manager. I was handling the community on Reddit, Discord, and Telegram. Apart from that, I was also the guy who onboarded the first 1,000 artists on the platform itself. There was a rigorous process back then to get the artist on the platform. After that, I joined multiple DAOs and DeFi projects like Hashtag, which are building new protocols. If I talk about one of them is Hashtag, which is trying to build under collateralized loans and in a decentralized manner. Apart from that, I joined Olympus DAO, which is they claim to be the reserve currency of the world. It's not doing well, but that was a very a brave idea and brave execution that they did. After that, I joined DCX as their community manager, and we are a team of 3 people. We have been constantly working on doing pan India meetups and forming these communities, like these small communities, to make it possible to people for really connect and build something and explore new things. Because right now, if you see uh, all across the internet, there are multiple communities. You can join any community, but the thing that lacks is that you don't get a connect, a belongingness to these people, and the level of collaboration also decreases. So what DCX is trying to do is make you if you are a chapter leader. Basically, a chapter leader is the guy who heads a specific city community, and they are the ones who drive the force behind that community. They are the ones that make them work together. So we have been getting more and more chapter leaders in our coin d6 local chapter program, and through this we are creating a network of very different communities from each city. And we are moving forward to get at least 40 more communities in the coming months. So in this way, we are making a network of communities that will be able to make the products that India needs in the future, and even the global needs that people have. And not just that, the people who are want to get into Web3, but they are always confused or confuzzled about the fact that where should I start. These communities that we are building are a very good place to start, because the people there, some of them are in the process of getting into Web3. Some of them has already made it into Web3, and they are building protocols. So connecting people to these people is what allows us to give them more value, whether it be the guidance they need, whether it be the educational stuff they need, or different activities that we also do at our platforms is also something that helps them. So this is basically more about the whole local chapters program that we are trying to do across India. And coming back to Shardium, which I'm also a contributor at. So Shardium is India's first, biggest L1 blockchain. Currently, it has a funding of 18 million, and it is valued at 200 million. It is led by Omar Sayed and Nistal Sethi. So, if I tell you more about them, Omar Sayed has worked for 10 years for NASA. He is the guy who has, a bunch of patents got his own patents which are registered by the companies that themselves, and he has been for the last 25 years working on the distributed network systems. So he's the guy who's developing it. And Nishchal Shetty, as you all know, that he is one of the most prominent guys in the crypto space, along with Sumit Gupta and a few other people who are leading this space. So these are the guys who are building this Shardium L1 blockchain. Now, what differentiates Shardium from any other blockchain is that currently, so if we look at Ethereum, they're trying to build a sharded network in the future. But since they launched their network without sharding and compatibility, they had a bunch of problems that needed to solve. And in order to make it backward compatible, which means that even if once it's sharded, you will be still able to access the data that was uh, onboarded to that network before the sharding happened. They had to make a lot of compromises, whether it be composability, whether it be the TPS or any other technical aspect that now which are possible, but they couldn't implement it because they needed to be backward compatible. Now what Shardium is doing is they are bringing exclusive new features that are very much needed in order to scale a network to 1 billion users. So few of the feature I'll explain it to you. One of them is called dynamic sharding. What does dynamic sharding means is that the current system which have sharding, they are very much static. Once you have 64 shards, it will stay that way. It doesn't matter if your network congestion increases or decreases, or there is need for more shard or even less shard. It won't be possible unless you do a hard fork and make another blockchain. Shardium provides a new solution. So the network is smart enough to make it decide that do we need more shards as of right now, or do we need to make the shards less. This is one of the features that they are doing. One of the things that they are also doing is making it possible to give composability to the dApps. What composability means in terms of blockchain is, I would tell you that, let's say each smart contract is a Lego piece. Now, in the current Ethereum system, you can combine these Lego piece on the top of it to make a new smart contract or to make a new protocol. But once the sharding is done on Ethereum 2.0, the blockchain will itself divide itself into 64 different shards. And let's say you want to access a specific dApp, a specific smart contract on a specific shard, and one more on another shard. It won't be possible. So what it will try to do is first finish up the smart contract processing on single shard, then it will move to a different shard, then this jiggling will happen. This will eventually break the composability. And what we are going to see in future is that different shards will pile up. So let's say if I have a shard for DeFi, Uniswap is there, different DEX aggregators are there. They want to stay in that shard because it won't break the composability. And because of that, we will see in future, we will see that different shards are divided into different dApps. Some of the gaming dApps might end up in a single shard. Some of the DeFi projects might end up in a different shard. And eventually what it will the whole purpose of dividing this shard to lesser the congestion that a network gets will be defeated, because again a lot of shards will be occupied much more than the shards which are not used much, and we will again see the TPS problem. Now what Shardium does is that it doesn't matter which shard you put the contract on, it will still maintain the composability, which means that whatever contract that you want to call out, it will be done in a single transaction. And they are doing it they are doing it this in the back end. On the front end, it is very much compatible to the EVM. So let's say you're a new coder and you want to build on Shardim. For you, for the front end side, which means that you need to put out a contract, for you it won't change anything. You won't have to change anything in your code to make it compatible to Shardim. So these are the few things that Shardim is bringing to the table. One more thing I would like to tell you about that, this unique feature which is already implemented in the Web 2 servers, which is like auto scaling. So let's say AWS is hosting some website, and the website gets a lot of traffic and continuous traffic. Now the easier solution is they will increase the computational power to maintain that traffic. That currently doesn't happen in blockchains. No blockchain, no other blockchain in the world has this solution of auto scaling. Shardam is also bringing auto scaling, so which means that if the network is getting congested, it will automatically, there is a concept of standby nodes, which are the nodes in line, but they are not being used for the validation. So it will bring those nodes in as soon as the network is getting congested, and it will increase the computational power, and hence it won't make a congestion happen. Similar thing will happen if there is, a lot of less TPS required for a specific time. It can decrease the nodes, making it very efficient as a network. So these are the few things that I wanted to tell you about Shardium and CoinD6. If you want to, take part in the CoinD6 local chapters, you can contact me on LinkedIn or Krishna Chawla on LinkedIn. We are already always available. If you want to be a leader for a specific city, you can also add us on LinkedIn and ask us for a form. We'll give you that. And in case you want to build some dApp on Shardem, this is the best time of to build on Shardem, because right now the project that we have, they have already garnered like thousands of followers, multiple users. So the earlier you build on a L1, the better it is for you. So yeah, that was my take on Shardem and Coin D6.
Yes, like Shadam is one of our sponsors.
All right, so they are also sponsoring this hackathon.
Yes, there are our diamond sponsors.
All right.
Okay, okay, let's start our workshop on CBDC.
Sure thing. So, like you all know that CBDCs are going to be inevitable. Uh, 3 4 years back, nobody was talking about them. It felt like a distant idea that someday countries might want to get into CBDCs. But then a eventual wave of CBDCs started piling up. We saw that China releases first, version of CBDC, digital yuan, which is still, I think, live in China in some provisions. And India is also soon going to launch a CBDC. But the statement still remains that are most of the countries going to rely on cryptocurrencies to launch their CBDCs, or do they want to build their own? Now I'll explain the problems that comes into, when we say that let's build a CBDC on a blockchain, public blockchain like Ethereum. Now in a economic system where a country has the power, to take the economic decisions, they want to print more money, they want to, do some other stuff with the money, they have the full access. But once they are on Ethereum, they won't have the access, to provide different solution when it comes to, let's say there is a economic crisis in a country, like in COVID, us country printed more than 40% of the currency they ever had. This is something which is like, once the smart contract is live on Ethereum, it won't be possible. You won't be able to, increase the supply of a specific protocol. So that is one of the problem, because countries do need to, have the access to print more money when there is a economic crisis. Otherwise the country might economically might collapse, and a lot of things might happen. And with Ethereum it won't be possible. So that's why this is one of the main reasons that countries will have their own CBDCs. They might in the back end use the same distributed ledger technology, which is very prevalent now. And most of the countries are building their own solution in order to make sure that this system doesn't get affected by anything. And the second problem, I think, that is, if you like put your currency on a public blockchain, you won't have the access to, who it can be sent. So if India launches a CBDC on Ethereum, it can be used by a guy from Kenya or some terrorist from Taliban, because after its launch, nobody has the access to, maintain who gets the access to these things. That is also a very big problem, because in the later years, AML will become a very big problem if you launch on a public blockchain. But I think we have already seen that some countries are opting for public blockchains. These countries are majority going to be the countries which don't have, big enough countries or big enough budgets to develop their own CBDCs. But the majority of the countries which have a lot of, money power, they are going to build their own. And in the recent days, we have also seen that RBI also released a paper on CBDCs. And The basics things that they talk about, I want to skip that and want to talk more about the fascinating stuff they talked about. So one of the thing that they also talked about was anonymity. Now, if it is not a public blockchain, we don't know how much of my data is being used to uh, these governments or any other entity. So they also talked about anonymity and proposed few solution that if the transaction amount is less than a specific amount, then it will remain anonymous, or if it is large enough, then it can be used to take actions if if a government figure out if something wrong is being done by a specific guy or a specific group of people. So these are the problems that they are going to tackle. And one thing that was I got fascinated by, they also talked about quantum encryption. So even like we are very far away from getting a quantum computer ready, which in theory can break any RSA or SHA-256 code. So they also talked about that they want to make the currency resilient to these quantum computers. These are the some of the things that Indian cryptocurrency and CBDC's paper talked about. And yeah, like that's pretty much it on the paper. So any other like questions you would specifically want to have around it?
Yes, like do you have like ever read like Australia also released like a CBDC paper sort of thing.
What?
Australia also released their
Yeah,
CBDC.
yeah, yeah. So Australia, like, so a lot of countries, like they are releasing a basic papers on CBDCs, and Australia, like, I haven't dived much into the Australian paper, but in the future we are going to see a lot of papers. Now, coming back to like when we say that different countries are, proposing their different ideas of CBDCs, and this will create a problem that we already have in Web3, which is interoperability. So let's say Ethereum wants to talk to BNB, or BNB wants to talk to Ethereum. How they are going to do it? Right now we have bridges, but bridges, as we all know, that they get hacked most often, and we can't let it happen between two countries when they are trying to exchange a form of currency. So let's say India launches its own CBDC, USA has its own CBDC, and they want to exchange money. Now, a contradictory to what government wants us, that government wants us to trust in their system. They don't want a decentralized trustless blockchain governing their currency. But when it comes to countries, let's say there are two countries, they want it to be decentralized, they want it to be trustless, because in the past we have seen that the current system SWIFT that we have, which kind of governs the global system of payment between banks, it is very much centralized. And when SWIFT was in like last year, US government also banned some of the transaction between Russia and different countries. That also created a problem that, let's say, USA or India or any other country have a conflict, then no country should have the power, to stop this interoperability between two countries transferring CBDCs. So India, also tried to present this idea that should we make a decentralized network around the globe that governs this CBDCs infrastructure of interoperability between different country, or should we stick to the trustless manner? My opinion on this would be that in the future countries are going to have a decentralized protocol that governs the transaction of CBDCs across countries. And this gives a huge opportunity. So if we have a really decentralized and secure network, which is like Ethereum is much closer to that path. But if we have that, countries might just opt to these solutions that are already available, like Ethereum, or it can be Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts as of yet, but these are the certain solutions that it can tackle. So that's my thought on it. Like countries getting into their own version of CBDC is really releasing their own views on CBDC and technologies. But the problem that remains is that in interoperability between them.
Fair enough. Let's move our discussion a little bit into our community building side. Okay, like how to kickstart a career in community management.
So that is a big question. I would like to start with my like own journey. So if you want to build a community, you don't build it in day one. You first become a part of community that you want to build. Let's say you want to get into crypto or NFTs. The best thing to do, anybody who wants to get part in this thing, is, let's say you want to launch an NFT project, but you don't have a community yet. You start going to different communities. You start, learning more about that, and eventually you start becoming a speaker of that specific niche. And once you have your own brand, then you can, build your own communities. So it is a slow process. That is how also we started. So initially, when I had no communities, I joined a WazirX NFT. Then I got to meet a lot of NFT artists, got in touch with them, got to know about their problems, and started curating content for them. And eventually that happened. Then once you are a figure that can hold a community, then people can follow. That is the, very natural step. Then you build a community, rather than you starting out with a very new people and trying to get a community. A lot of projects have failed because of that, because they don't have a community. And what they try to do is, do this gimmicks of meme contest, or another one giveaway, two giveaway. But in the end, these fall, because as soon as you stop the incentivizing wala button, the more you reward them, the more of them will come. But as soon as that stops, people will start caring about the project. So that is one thing. But I think what Web3 differs from Web2 is that Web2 community building is much harder. So community building is basically works on three pillars. If you have a specific interest, you build a community on that. Reddit is the perfect example. Nobody is promoting subreddits on Reddit, but they still have a lot of communities. It can be as weird as, my favorite socks, or the cats I love. And these things are, based out of interest. People don't need a leader in these spaces to, form a community. Second thing is, the skill based communities, which are much more sophisticated. So let's say if you are a community manager, or you want to become one, there are different communities which are formed of community managers. Bevy is one of the communities that I'm part of. It has a lot of different community managers, and the content that you get around is always, related to community management. So this is the second type of community, which is skill based. Even this is much, simpler to be a part of. And again, this doesn't require a specific leader to guide the whole community part. Now the last thing, which is the most tough, I would say, is the product community. And especially in Web 2, if you want to build a community in Web 2, there is not a lot of permanent or sustainable incentive that you can give it to them. It's your product. They can't be the owners of it. They can only be the consumer in a way. And that becomes a very big problem, because if you are not giving them a take or a share in your product, what is in the end that they are getting? So these communities are much harder to build. Unless they have a really good incentive, they it's gonna fall apart. And when it comes to Web3, the nature of Web3 is, you can give the ownership of different protocols to them, by a token, or by, membership on DAO, or giving them the voting rights. And this immediately connects them to, building more towards it, because now they have the ownership. They are part of the community. The more they contribute, the more they talk about it, the more better it is for them. So that's one thing. That's why, we see Ethereum or Terra Luna community, they are really big. Even Shardem communities, I think we have crossed 60K members. So decentralized protocols are always going to be easier when it comes to community building. And if you are working on a protocol, let's say you're working on a DeFi project, first you need to, make your own community. You need to go on different projects. You need to make a name of yourself, and then you need to get more educational content about your DeFi, and also design your community based on game theory. So if you haven't, read a lot about game theory, I would really suggest you to read more about game theory. It dives on what motivates other people to take participate in a certain action, or a certain campaign that you are doing. And it lets you think through their perspective. So the more incentivized community you have, the more a decentralized community you have, the better the chances of getting a lot of users. If I take an example, Olympus DAO or Shadium. So when Shadium launched on February 2nd, they did not had a logo. The community gave them the logo. The community came together to build their website, design their website. So any asset out there that you see on Shadium, it is being built by the community. And what motivates them is that one day when the mainnet launches, they will have some share of tokens allotted to them. That is a basic motivation that drives them. And I think that is the purest form of community building, is that you are not just trying to get people to do your work. You are letting them be part of it. You are giving them the ownership that they need, and you are making sure that whatever the amount of work they have done, they will get a fair amount of that also. So that's my take on basically community building.
Okay. What is one thing you wish you would have known before you began your community building journey?
All right, so one thing that I lacked was the formal education of community building. Now, you might say that there is nothing out there like that, but I would refrain from saying that, because there are a lot of content available out there that dives into community building. Some of that might not be, related to Web3, but it's still important. The amount of education that you have in this space when it comes to community building also matters a lot. There are books like The Business of Belonging by, I think, Bevy. It is a great book that dives more into community building. And like I said, different community groups are available online. They also provide a different, segregated articles, blogs around community building. So having formal education gives you 10 steps ahead of anybody else, because what we think is that I'll experiment it out, it might work out, it might not, and then you grow your own skill set. But the amount of resource that is already available out there, and they have tried and tested it, and they know that this will work and this won't. If you have access to that information, it is better for you, because you already know a set of 10, 30, or 20 things that work out, and you can start with them rather than starting with zero and trying to figure out what might work and what might not work. So my best advice would be to get into these communities, start reading books around it, start with watching videos about community building. And not just, I'm not trying to get into the aspect of how to shill a community, or how to make bots and share it across Twitter, but the very seed of it, like how to grow a community, how to take care of it, what are the things that motivate your community, and how to sustain it. Because we have seen a lot of communities being built in a very short amount of time, and they also end up uh, going dead in terms of engagement. That is something which you don't want to do. You don't want to go around chill your community and make it 10K, 20K, but it doesn't have any real belongingness in them, connections in them. So that is something I would say, that read more about these things online.
Yes. This is a standard question. What books are you reading right now?
Okay, so if I like open my Kindle right now, so I'll just tell you that what I'm reading right now. So right now, there's this one book. Actually, it's a research paper which dives more into how blockchain mechanism works and what can be the future of node rewards. So that is what I'm currently reading. It is a research paper, but apart from that, I'm also reading The Business of Belongingness. Uh, and apart from that, in terms of fiction, I'm reading in 1984 by George Orwell. And there's one more, actually there's a trilogy of book by a Chinese author, if I'm right. It's called The Dark Forest. So it dives more into the intergalactic life and aliens that are present there, and what happens if we try to communicate with them first, and should we even contact them. So it's a really fascinating trilogy. I would suggest you all to read it. The kind of imagination and the kind of concept that it has is just fascinating. And when I think when it comes to community building, I'm right now, so I'm only reading this Business of Belongingness, but there are more books that I'll just share with Shiva after this podcast, and so he can also share it with the community. And yeah, so one more thing that guys, so this like 6,000 rupees product, which you might feel it's useless, this has proven to be the best thing that I've ever bought in my life, because you can download any book, read it anywhere, anytime, and it lasts for weeks. So buying a Kindle as a community builder or as anybody in the world is the best advice I can give you, because once you have this, you won't feel tiring about reading stuff, because it's made of e-ink, which doesn't really harm your eyes. You will be able to read more. And right now, like, since getting physical books can be a big task for you rather than getting a PDF, so I would also suggest you to get a Kindle yourself and start reading more.
Excellent. What question would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
I would So, okay, so I would ask that what are the things that I did wrong while, trying to get into Web3. So, if you are a person who want to get into Web3, the worst possible thing would be, getting more into the trading part. That is something that I dived into first. Back in 2017, 2019, I invested a lot of money. I borrowed it from my parents, of course. I invested a lot, lost it almost 90% of it, and that propelled my my need to learn more about blockchain and everything. So I would refrain you guys from doing the same. I know, like, most of them are developers and they won't even indulge it into much, but still, that is something that I would want you to refrain and get more into the blockchain reading part and the knowledge part. And even if, like, I think most of us, like most of the people who are watching it, might be coders or might be uh, still getting into the development part, I would want you to not only focus on the solidity part, but also focus on the whole blockchain architecture and how does it work. And I would want you to get more into different chains, like so let's say you are working on Ethereum, also get into BNB, also get into Solidity, because Shardium, because the amount of things that you can do on Ethereum right now are very limited by the TPS you get, by the speed you get. But let's say you get on Shardium, so you might have seen that Solana has this project called Serum, which works on the order book. And in order to create a DeFi based on order books, it needs to be very fast. The TPS needs to be extremely fast. That is not possible on Ethereum, but that same thing, with the same code, like you can tweak the code, but the coding language will stay the same. That will be possible on Shardem because of the higher TPS it gets. So uh, my uh, my my suggestion would be, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. You don't need to go out and figure out that what I can build. It's a open world. Ethereum is open. You just pick a dApp that is decent enough, work on it, make it better, and put it out on a better chain that can do much more with it. So that is one thing I've seen, that developers always try to figure out that what can be the next thing. You might need not need to build the next best thing. What you can do is that if the code is available, get on the code and make it better. So that would be my suggestion on the mistake that I have made previously.
Finally, thank you so much for doing this. We got a lot of answers. Thank you, Rick.
All right. So one last thing I would also talk about is that we recently launched a very new product on Chidem. It's called .shm. It is a domain naming service, and what makes it much easier than any other domain service is that we are trying to focus more on the onboarding part. So right now, if you go out and try to buy a ENS domain, the process is much hectic. You need to first get the Ethereum token, then transfer it from P2P to your wallet, then download a MetaMask, do all of that, then you can get a domain. And same thing happens on any other platform. Now .shm is what we are trying to do is make it much affordable for you. So each domain right now cost around 500 rupees. Doesn't matter how many characters there are in your username. And also the fact that we are soon going to support, logins through Google and Facebook in a decentralized manner. So we are using a protocol called Web3 Auth, which makes it possible that you can log in through different social accounts and still it can be decentralized. So that's my thoughts on .shm. We have so far got 60K uh, $1,000 of domains reserved on Polygon. We have more than 1.5 million SHM test tokens on our Liberty testnet, which is live on Shardam Liberty, and more than 20 to 25,000 people have already got their usernames. So if you want to get a username for yourself, I would suggest you to go to www.shm.me. So that is the one thing that you can do. And thanks a lot for Shiva for bringing me on the show, and thanks a lot for the whole team.
Great.